Welcome back and thank you for joining A Shark's Perspective. How are you leveraging voice as part of your marketing strategy today? Whether it's a podcast, a flash briefing, a blog with audio content, or even a sound. While it's still relatively early, it's still an important opportunity for brands to position themselves first in an area that has incredibly quick adoption by consumers, with increasing demands for this to also help improve their experience. Emily Bender is an entrepreneur, a speaker, a voice AI, and emerging technology consultant, and she's the founder of both Beetle Moment Marketing and Wealth Voice. And on this episode, we'll discuss audio and voice marketing, transcriptions, voice SEO, flash briefing, sonic branding, Hey Google, ROI and attribution, privacy concerns, Carl Jung, Scarab Beetles, Wolverine football, baby's name Alexa, number 53, and a lot more. So let's tune in to a Beetle Moment voice marketer with a shark having my own shark moment on this episode of A Shark's Perspective. Emily, thank you so much for joining us today on A Shark's Perspective. Tell us a little bit about your background and your career to date, please.
Hi, Shark. Great to be here. So my background is over a dozen years in marketing. I've worked in all different categories, had a lot of different brands and clients under my belt. And about 3 to 4 years ago, I branched off and started my own consultancy focusing on voice marketing, which is anything you do with voice assistants like Alexa or Google, voice search, recorded audio, sonic branding, anything that is in the audio and voice realm. I focus on that, but I still have a holistic approach to marketing and work on things like social media, branding, content, all of that. And I've also started a company called Wealth Voice, which is my Corona startup. And it is essentially a CMS for Alexa skills for financial professionals at the moment. But we're going to branch out and start to embrace other categories.
So your company, and I knew you from, was the Beetle Moment. What did that come from? Where's the love of Beatles?
Yeah. So this is a homage to Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist. I was actually a psychology major. I went to the University of Michigan. There's your college dropping there. We were talking about that before the show. So yes, I was learning all about Carl Jung and the collective unconscious and synchronicity, which he developed. It's a concept of things that are more than just a coincidence. There's a greater meaning behind some moment when the universe winks at you, essentially. And he had this story that he told in his book about synchronicity, where he had a patient. She was very rational, logical, difficult to kind of crack open her third eye and get her to start understanding the collective unconscious and the greater meaning to things. So she's in his office. She said, I had a dream last night. I'll tell you all about it. She lies down on the couch and then says, in this dream, my husband gave me this golden scarab. It's a piece of jewelry. And right as she was describing how it looked, like the green glint of the shell, there was this tapping sound on the window, like, and then he looked and he opened the window and he grabbed the little insect that was trying to get in, and he handed it to her and he says, here's your beetle. It was a scarabee beetle, exactly like the one she had described in the dream. Not native to Vienna by any means. Very, very much more than a coincidence, right?
Yeah.
So I started referring to moments like that as beetle moments, and I was ready to name my business, and I thought way too hard and too long about this. It took me like 6 months to find the right name, but I thought, oh, I'll just call it Beetle Moment Marketing because it's an animal. It flows well. I can own SEO for it. Nobody has even a single web page about it except for maybe one from like 1992. So that's the story. It's finding a moment of connection.
Yeah. And as a Michigan grad, you've established a lot of connections with people who are used to losing big bowl games.
Are you Ohio State? Did we talk about this?
No, I'm not. But I have watched a lot of Wolverine football. So
we're the winningest team in college football history. I don't know what you're talking about.
Maybe not in the last 10 years.
I'm not a sports ball person, but I know
sports ball. Yeah,
lot.
That's an homage to Andy Cristodina right there. All right, so talk about what you're seeing really that excites you about voice marketing today, and obviously what we're seeing with e-commerce, especially with Echo of devices and in-home devices like that. What else is it that also excites you about voice marketing today?
Well, purely from a consumer technology standpoint, if you look at the devices and what people are using, You have to follow the bouncing ball of attention. It's all about where is attention headed, not where was it or where is it. It is headed toward voice. And the most powerful stat to support that is the fact that smart speakers are the fastest growing, fastest adopted consumer technology of all time. They've outpaced the television, the radio, the computer, the smartphone, reaching 50% adoption in under 5 years. If you look at that, just knowing that people gravitate toward what is convenient and easy, nothing is easier than using your voice. I mean, that is the human API, the original way to interact, to listen. Typing, tap, type, and swipe, this is unnatural, not ergonomic, slow. It's going to be like the VCR, Betamax. I mean, that's your keyboard pretty soon.
Mm-hmm. Well, when TV and when radio started, we didn't have an Amazon, which practically gave them away for free. I mean, I've got several now, and I love it, and I love my home device as well. But how much of that adoption do you think actually goes towards us wanting to use voice more rather than just having the product in our homes?
Wanting to use voice more.
I question some of the adoption of it on occasion because I often, I hear that and I believe it as well. I think I'm probably trying to ask devil's advocate so somebody can answer this better than I can. But Amazon did a great job of pushing these devices. I mean, you can get them for nothing now. I say relatively nothing.
It was $19 on Prime Day for the dot. Number one selling product on Prime Day for the 4th year in a row, by the way.
That's fantastic. Is it, I'm wondering how much Amazon is helping push us into more audio habits versus necessarily us wanting to do audio and then going to buy an Amazon or a Google Home device.
I'm glad you asked that because, Shark, when I go on these podcasts, everyone asks me the same questions and they never challenge or push. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Let's dig in. Here's the thing. It's 50-50 probably because you have the retail giant, the number one mall on earth, Amazon, which has the majority of e-commerce growth, and they're pushing this, and for good reason, because they want to own the home and the car and rental properties, by the way, with Alexa for residential. It behooves them to get Alexa adopted. But why are people adopting it? Because it's easy, because it's convenient, because it's cool, because it's natural, because there's no learning curve. You don't have to be a digital native to figure it out. Anybody who has a voice already knows how to use it. So there's all of that. But I mean, sure, this is a long game. Like, this is what Bezos does really well. He doesn't need to make money today. He can lose money for many years, but long game, this is about owning the home, being that ubiquitous ambient computing operating system.
Do you look at the adoption with, out of home as a challenge for audio? Because if I'm in the home, most of the time I use Alexa. And if I'm out of home, I use Siri. There's still a connection though. I mean, it's hard to, say hard. It's relatively more difficult for people to open the Alexa app, let alone install it on their phone and then use it.
Well, it's really early right now, but we can see that actually voice in the car is the number one use case of voice, more so than talking to mobile, using the smart speaker, because it is the most natural. And many of the top manufacturers, BMW, Mercedes, Ford, they all have a voice assistant baked into the cars now. So there's a battle going on, right? So you have Alexa, you have Google, you have Siri. These are the top contenders. The other ones are not necessarily worth mentioning in the context of this discussion, but in the car, they're going to be duking that out. And then you're going to run into the same issues that we have with almost everything else in tech, which is multiple walled gardens. You can, you're a TV guy. How many apps do I need to subscribe to be able to watch all the shows that I want to see? 7? And then you end up back at might as well just buy a cable bundle at this point.
Yeah, you end up paying more for all the apps. What excites you more now in voice marketing? Is it B2B or B2C?
That's a good one.
I mean, obviously B2C, we can reorder in D2C as well. We can reorder a lot of products directly through Amazon, but I'm often getting questions from people about B2B, and it's becoming a much different conversation that I'm having to sort of reframe my thinking on.
Yeah, well, for me, probably B2B a little more. I think the B2C stuff is cool, but that's almost this area that I've worked in before, and I ended up just finding that I'm better off when I do B2B. I've worked budget rent a car, spent a lot of time in my early career there. You know, I have an easier time marketing to other businesses.
Sure, sure.
But yeah, the B2 that like shopping, ecom, that's where Alexa absolutely reigns. Google's better for getting information. Google Assistant, it just is. It's, that's the encyclopedia. You want to shop, go to the mall.
Well, what about industry verticals? So your new company, you were talking about financial services, right? Yeah. So
That's
what
right.
what industry? Why is it financial services? What is sort of spiking that appeal for you in regards to voice marketing?
So this is there are a few aspects to this. The FinTwit community, people like financial advisors, any financial professionals happen to be really keen on voice. Not necessarily more than marketing per se, like MarTech ad people like, our world. But I've found that in the world of finance, they are really interested in personalizing their brand, and they're like big into podcasting, and the voice thing is just this natural jump for it. They're also really into SEO, just like every business is, but I've just found that I really enjoy working with that vertical. And the thing is that it became apparent to me, especially during 2020, that helping people manage their money is also doing good in the world. This is something we need to really focus on, especially for women. There's a major, not wage gap, but wealth gap. Women are retiring with, on average, $1 million less than their male counterparts. And every little bit adds up in your career. Like that $10,000 salary you didn't negotiate for in your 20s has major repercussions when you're 60. Humongous amounts of money. We have such little financial literacy. It's abysmal. And so if you think about where's attention headed, how do we help people? How do we help our economy? And you think maybe voice, maybe that's the way, maybe using AI, maybe bite-sized digestible content can get through to people better than a textbook. So I've always had that in the back of my mind too with it.
Yeah, good point. So you mentioned the holistic viewpoint of marketing, and I'd love to know how should someone look at integrating voice marketing? Because this is holistic marketing for me is such a major push in my brain. But how should teams look at leveraging voice to not be a siloed part of your marketing efforts?
Well, it's good that you mentioned silo, because that's exactly what you don't want to do.
No.
The mistake so many businesses make, especially in the last 2-3 years as I've been working in voice, is they'll say, well, so this is our voice effort. How do we promote it? And why aren't people flocking to it? Well, as with any early technology, you need to educate people. You can't expect, we built it, they will come. It doesn't work that way. So take all of your channels and make it work together. Example, if you have an Alexa skill, you need to share it with your audience everywhere else that they're already hanging out. There's still this learning curve. It's an education thing, like I said, with what is voice capable of. It's more than music, news, weather. There's a lot more you can do with it. As far as where do you get started, you can start really simple. So as businesses realize with social media, I mean, you can liken a lot of what's happening with voice to the early days of social or the early days of the internet, where you might have businesses still in the yellow pages and you had to convince them why they needed a .com. Oh, why would I do that? No one's finding me there. People don't trust the internet. Who would ever make a credit card payment online? But the same thing will happen with voice. It's just happening even faster. You can start with something simple, like do a flash briefing, a mini podcast. Get your SEO in order for voice search. Start running simple searches, like go talk to your own Alexa or Google and look up your company or your category, ask some basic questions that a customer might be asking about you, see what the response is. The vast majority of businesses are not prepared for this. And it's the equivalent of somebody's running a Google search and you're not present. You're not present on voice search. Kenneth, sorry. 30% of searches are done by voice, screenless. That's a third. It's really important to optimize for that. I mean, without talking about content marketing, podcasting, flash briefings, fun stuff, just on that SEO part, this is where people are going to be getting their information.
How do you look at SEO a little bit differently with, whether it's podcasting or flash briefings and everything else, but how are you starting to look at SEO differently with your clients in regards to voice?
I'm starting to say voice search is just as important as typed search, because this is where the growth is happening. All the numbers are pointing to people are increasingly searching by voice, dictation, whether it's on a voice assistant or even just talking into their phone. So in approaching this, you need to figure out what's the low hanging fruit? Like, what are 5 phrases that we want to make sure we're optimized for, where we are the number one result? Because here's the other challenge, is if things don't get more complicated and difficult every year with digital marketing anyway, there's position 0 on steroids. When you think of it from a voice perspective, there's one result, maybe a couple extras, depending what happens with, sponsored results and voice, but you got one shot.
Yeah. It's really interesting to me to think of the, sort of longer tail approach to conversations with SEO for voice, because the way you type a question in Google is different than the way that you voice something out loud necessarily. It's not everything. You're not necessarily always just going to say, hey, find the pizza shops near me, or things like that. And so a lot of the way we converse is different than the way we type. And so I've run into quite a few conversations about that. But sort of as a follow-up to that SEO, have you come across looking at disability and accessibility? Because I know that's something that I talk about a lot. And I remember telling a lot of people just to transcribe their podcast, because there's still such a huge audience who can't consume content the same way. So I always kind of give them advice to make sure to add those transcriptions. So I don't know if that's a long babbled question, but I think you get my gist on it.
Yes. Transcription is key. You can just see that people need to have the ability to consume things different ways. So this is why with audiograms, for example, the captions running along the bottom are probably the main ingredient that makes those so engaging. If you want to share your podcast, after we put this episode out, I hope you're going to do an audiogram for us.
Yeah.
People will, on Instagram, on Twitter. I don't use Facebook. I really try to avoid it, but I guess there as well. They'll engage with an audiogram way more than a photo or a true full video where you have to click the link and watch the 20-minute YouTube. They want 60 seconds, maybe less. And that's the best way to share your podcast. You need to have captions. You need to transcribe it. Transcription helps with SEO for YouTube as well. And with the overall indexing of all audio content, we're getting to that point. The transcription services are getting better and better. Speech recognition with voice assistants is now on par with human speech recognition. So as much as you might get frustrated, this is a tangent, but people say, oh, Alexa or Google didn't hear me correctly. If you're a white male, American accent, you're fine. Otherwise, yeah, you might have some trouble. But of course, that's about design and who's in the room.
Well, you mentioned audiograms. How else are you talking about with your clients about promoting audio differently?
That's a tough one, because when you promote it, you have to do a few things, and you only have a quick moment, right? It's that, what do they call it? Stopping the scroll, finger stopping, all that. It needs to be engaging, just like a regular ad or post, but on top of it, there has to be the educational component. So I say keep it simple and just try to accomplish one thing at a time with whatever you're doing. Just like with any marketing or advertising, you could say things like, did you know we have an Alexa skill? And then explain the benefit. Why should they use it? What can they get there that they wouldn't get somewhere else?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's that. And there's just, you have to mention it more than once. You have to keep going with it. Like I have a client, for example, a financial advisor in the Bay Area, and he has a 10-year plus running successful radio show. We just launched his custom Alexa skill and Google action. It's called Protect Your Assets. You can go check it out. There's a one-shot invocation. So you don't even click. You don't have to go type. You could just say it. You could say, Alexa, enable Protect Your Assets, or the same thing for, hey, Google, enable. And then you can hear the latest podcast. You can ask the Sandman, who's David, he's the founder, president. He's the voice. The Sandman helps you sleep at night. Your assets are protected. So again, for money. And we've seen huge adoption just in the last few months, like over 800 interactions just in August. People are asking him, how do I save for retirement? How will coronavirus affect my portfolio? And it's because we're putting it out on social organically too, and email. So you have to mention it wherever people are already paying attention and help them move on over.
Well, and you did a great job, again, just promoting. It's sort of how I got intro to you or found you. You just promoted somebody else. You promoted somebody else on another podcast I heard way back when. I know we spoke about Audrey Orbini and Sonic, their Sonic Brain.
Yeah.
How are you?
Audio Brain.
Audio Brain. Sorry, I was going to ask a question about Sonic branding, so I combined the two. How are you really looking at Sonic branding differently or integrated, whichever way you want to describe it, as part of a voice marketing strategy? Because I know she helped you, I think, with re-skinning your or re-earing
Yeah, I don't even
your
know what to
audio
call it.
profile.
Hmm.
How do you look at
Yes.
that?
Okay, so sonic branding, this is so cool. And this is an area that I actually have learned quite a bit in the last few years from mainly from Audrey Arbini, actually. Audio Brain New York, they're the number one sonic branding agency in the world, I would say. I mean, they're definitely known as one of the top, but I've they did the sonic branding for Xbox 360, NBC Olympics,
The Olympics,
McDonald's
yeah.
self-serve kiosks. Like you hear work they've done, it's heard millions of times a day around the world. So Audrey she's a true genius of sound and bioacoustics. There's this whole study to it, but basically, if you think about the brain and where we have evolved from as human animals, we process sound in what is it, 0.05 seconds faster than any other sense, 10 times faster than the blink of an eye. So if you want to reach a customer or make an emotional connection with somebody, the fastest way is through their ears. It's not through their eyes. It's not through scent marketing, these like strange things that we're trying to do, but the sound of the voice. Like, look at podcasting. Why do we have this just keen affinity for podcasts and consuming and having that true relationship with a host? Every week we hear their voice in our ear. The first sensory interaction you have as a human is in the womb, and it's the sound of your mother's voice. You're floating in utero. You don't feel or know of anything but sound. So because of the way that is in the brain, music,
Yeah.
sound, and memory are all right next to each other in the brain. Sonic branding, the sound of your brand, when it's done well, it just solidifies that experience of the brand, and the brand lives in the subconscious. It's not rational. It's all emotional when we buy something. The quickest way to make somebody feel is to use sound. Believe it or not. I love copywriting. I love visuals, but sound is so powerful. And sonic branding, it's just as important as your visual look and feel in your logo. Majority of brands don't have their sonic branding done. And worse yet, a lot of them will lease commercial music, stock music, which is not unique and identifiable to them.
Oh, well, so one of the things, and I know I think I talked to Audrey about this. I presented back when we had real stages and we could present to people before everybody got COVID. But I presented about lead gen. I talked about audio. And one of the things, and I could not agree with your point more, is really leveraging audio, even with call centers. And I'll give you an example. Somebody calls in to a phone number, and I think Xbox had this as well. I want to say I even tested this out with several brands that I knew. So if you think of the Intel, dun, 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 that, and then the
Oh,
Xbox
Intel
sound and
Inside?
things like that.
Yeah.
So if you call into a call center, especially when trying to buy something, farmers, we are farmers, bump, 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 bump. That tone should be on the call center right before somebody gets to deal with a call center agent, because it triggers something in them. And it's a
Mm-hmm.
reminder. It's almost like a conversion standpoint, like a CRO standpoint, conversion rate optimization for audio. And so it's something I've presented on. I implemented this when people start identifying that audio, that sonic brand that goes with them. If they have something like a quick tone that people recognize or they use in their TV commercials, again, it's another way to break down silos and integrate that in right before they're at the point of sale. And so it's something I find pretty interesting, and I love talking about it. So let's switch a little bit though. So let's talk about attribution. So like everything else in today's world of marketing and advertising, how should somebody look at attribution or look at the return on investment with what they're spending in audio? Because obviously in today's world, getting money allocated to anything, again, it's fairly new. So it's still got to be explained with the value of. How do you sort of help people understand what the value is that they're getting? Not necessarily an attributable dollar, because audio from podcasting is a hot mess to try to figure out all the connection points with Spotify and Pandora and everything else. But there's so much around attribution right now, or so much around ROI for marketers having to justify where they spend money. It's obviously a concern.
Yeah. I look at it as branding, and there's a couple aspects right now that are timely when talking about where do we put budget and how do we justify it. So the first one is just like with any form of branding, sometimes there isn't a direct ROI. I mean, having a presence on voice is insurance, it's hedging. It's like, oh, here comes the next version of the internet, essentially. Are we going to be there or not? I have a client who I launched an Alexa skill and a flash briefing for, and they invested quite a bit of money. And they said, we understand that we're not going to see much from this necessarily at first, but we'll have the legacy of having, owning our brand name, owning our search terms, having the first skill that did this, getting buzz, getting some press about it because we're doing something cool and new, impressing our clients and customers by saying we're voice first, we're on it. We're not going to just do what's been done. We're going to push the envelope. Not every company can push the envelope. Some of them have to be a little more careful and stingy, and that's fine. You guys go do that. That's not
Yeah.
the kind of company that I work with. That's not where I focus my energy. But the ROI of voice it's kind of similar to the ROI of social media at this point, because unless you're doing it from a really transactional e-com perspective, where you are measuring, this is how many people bought the microwave popcorn because the Alexa microwave said, well, I noticed that you're running low on popcorn. Would you like 50% off? And we'll put it in your cart, and you need to do it by voice. Most sales aren't happening that way. It's content marketing. And so we don't even have perfect attribution and tracking in anything we're doing digital. It's still not perfect. It's like, it's better than a Nielsen rating, but
God,
yeah,
yeah.
look at it from a branding perspective.
I don't find audio to be the most expensive entry point in marketing. I mean, you can, sky's the limit on whatever you want to spend, but it's not like it's going to break your bank to go do a podcast or an Alexa skill.
Correct. It's actually easier to produce than most other higher production costs and effort, like video, for example.
Yeah.
Audio
Yeah,
is much
exactly.
easier. But the thing is, these Alexa skills, you can build them and then you can update them just like a website. So I think it's getting started on something that's going to be so important, but you're getting in early before it's crowded. And what's the value of that? Well, do you own Kenneth.com? I don't own Emily.com. I don't even have @Emily on Twitter because I wasn't early enough. You could get your name. It's like,
Yeah.
it's the same
Yeah.
thing, claim your handle, right? The one other point I wanted to make though about timely ROI and how we look at this. I did a flash briefing on this the other day. If you want to listen to Voice Marketing with Emily Binder, I have 3-minute or less daily briefings every weekday about topics like what I'm about to mention, which I think are so interesting for marketers, for people that are running brands. But
Well, you are
what's
going to
the
repeat
deal?
this later because you're going to get your
Yep.
shameless plug section at the end.
Okay. Well, good to know. But this is a value add for people.
Absolutely.
So what's the deal with marketing during a recession? Like, should you do it? Should you pull back? Should you save money at this point and try to save your business? Or is this like the best time to advertise? And should you be putting more toward it? And HBR did this study where they looked at all of these companies. It was like a year-long analysis. And during the past 3 global recessions, the 1980 crisis from 1980 to 1982, the slowdown from 1990 to 91, and the 2000 bust, which is 2000 to 2002, there were 4,700 public companies studied. And HBR concluded that 17% of the companies in that study did not survive a recession. They were either bankrupt, they were acquired, or they became private. And the factors that led to the successful companies, the ones that flourished after a slowdown, which were only 9% of those companies, were that they had a multi-pronged approach, which included not cutting marketing and advertising, but in ways actually ramping it up. When you're a brand and everybody's in a state of fear, panic, uncertainty, 2020, right? If you are still staying present, investing in your brand, investing in communicating with people, you signal, we are optimistic about the future. We are confident, and people will remember that.
Let's transition then to privacy. Privacy is an issue for a lot of people. I worked at a big data company that really held that at a religious value. We see it in digital marketing. Amazon's gotten pinged about how they were listening as well. But how are you advising, or does this come up in conversation much with companies now who see privacy as a concern for listening, how the devices interact with people and the privacy that we have given up on most, search and social platforms?
The concerns about privacy when it comes to voice are I would say, ignorant. So here's why. It's not that it's secure. They're not listening. They could access they can access whatever is recorded when you use the wake word, when you say Lexi blank, hey Google blank, because that is how these things function. The wake word triggers it and then it listens. Oh shoot, sorry about that. I turned off the Alexa but not the Google. All right, so the thing is, if you are carrying around a cell phone in your pocket, on your person, even a few hours a day, there's something happening which is called bulk collection. Edward Snowden has a YouTube video about this. Go watch it. Everybody needs to be informed. We are constantly pinging cell towers with our information, with just terabytes every minute of Americans' user data. That is from your cell phone. The teeny tiny drop in the bucket, which is whatever you say to your voice assistant, is nothing compared to Google, Facebook, all of the tech companies that are Amazon on shopping and everything. No way. Your phone is the security issue. It's not your voice assistant. It will be when you start to use it more. Google knows everything you've ever typed in. You type things into that search engine that you would not say to your spouse, your priest, your best friend, your therapist. Come on.
Yeah.
That's your privacy right there. So when people get up in arms, everyone's outraged, right? Outraged, and they're always concerned about the wrong things when the real issue is right under their nose. We'll all be outraged on Twitter about our privacy with Alexa. You're on Twitter. Come on. We are the product. The ads are being served based on everything. Every keystroke is recorded. There's no privacy anymore. So the question is the utility worth what you're giving up? I have decided for myself that on Facebook.com, it is not. That platform is just a serious problem. It's the most dangerous platform on our planet. It poses a greater risk to democracy, to freedoms, to peace, to the comity of man and woman than anything else. We've seen it already. And these companies, I think it was just yesterday that they're all going in front of Congress yet again over privacy issues. And then you've got antitrust. I mean, this is all happening. So, worrying the voice assistants recording me, I think the attention is in the wrong place on that.
Well, that line of question was brought to you by the Black Helicopter and Tinfoil Hat Club of the world. So people that were a little bit paranoid. But, one of the things I think about now, and I've heard you talk on podcasts about advertising, but as marketers often do, at some point we will start injecting in a lot more ads with audio. Are you worried at all about that? Does that even come up as a thought for you? Because I listened to several of your flash briefings, and yesterday automatically I was getting annoyed with every whatever number it was, because I don't have Spotify Premium, I think is where I was listening to it, where they were pushing 2 minutes of ads, and it reminded me of watching connected TV devices like Hulu or something, where you're forced to watch ads, and
the same ad
drives
over and
me
over.
Crazy. Yeah.
Oh, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I have Spotify Premium, and so I never hear ads on my own show, but yeah, that's a pain. Okay, so I hope ads never come, but they will. I hope they're done more thoughtfully. I remember back in, was it 2012, early Instagram, I actually had a podcast back then called the Digital Dive Podcast. It had a terrible production quality. We didn't know what we were doing. I was in my 20s, but we had this episode called
you were young.
Instagram.
You needed the podcast.
Yeah. It's a learning curve. But we had this episode where I remember Instagram had just come out with ads, and our title of the episode was something like, don't be creepy, don't follow users and retarget them, which nowadays actually that's probably making a better experience. Like, I don't have a problem with that. Most consumers wouldn't if they understood that it was actually making a better experience. People don't hate ads. They hate bad ads, of course. So Instagram, with their introduction of that, it's always a slippery slope. Then they started having video, and then there's sponsored posts, and then you have influencers. And now it's unrecognizable to what it was when it launched in 2011. What happens to voice if it starts getting polluted with ads? There is no forgiveness on that platform like there is on a tap, type, and swipe app, because when you're dealing with sound, you can only experience one thing at a time. You can't have multiple browser tabs open. You can't exit a pop-up. You're listening and you're being tortured by whatever terrible sonic branding might be in some ad that somebody's shot onto there.
So well, the ads I heard on that were between your episodes were not anything contextual at all, which
Oh yeah,
I
that's
was
the other.
listening to what the ads were actually were, and at least with most digital marketing, you can target or retarget at least somebody. And I don't even mind influencer ads anymore, even though some of them are in bad taste. At least there's some context there.
Yeah. With the voice advertising, what I would say the better thing to do is sponsorship of content. So you can see TD Ameritrade, for example, sponsors several flash briefings. I think they might even sponsor Motley Fool, but they do a nice job of it. It's gentle. It's almost like a little audio mark, and you remember that and you feel good about it. You don't feel interrupted. Advertising doesn't have a place on voice in its current format, in that interruptive push, just awful kind of pre-roll way. So there's going to need to be an actual come to Jesus about how do we market, produce content in a way that's actually native to voice, which is a totally different OS and experience than anything we've ever had. And we failed this the first time around when we went from desktop to mobile, because all we did was we took the desktop experience and we put it on a smaller screen. It wasn't truly mobile except for Twitter, because that app does one thing really well, and it's purely made for on the go updates. And it's still true to that, which is one of the reasons it's so successful.
What's the future state of voice marketing to you? What gets you excited and out of bed with what you want to see coming? And then at the same point, what do you see as the current limitations, things that are holding brands back from really embracing it more?
What gets me excited about it is the increase in contextual abilities of these voice assistants. So if you think about when you use a washing machine, you have to deal with the interface of that washing machine, and everyone is different. And every time you go there, you have to essentially introduce yourself again and say, I'm going to change the dial to hot, I'm going to put it on delicate, yada, yada, instead of just being able to say, wash my socks, just get it done. So that recognition of the user again and again, and the context of they just want to accomplish a task. Don't make them spell out the exact steps. You're the computer. You should know the steps. That's where voice is headed. The computer knows the steps, and all you have to do is, in a human way, make a request. When we get to that point, like, oh, hey, Alexa, how's my portfolio? What should I invest in? Or, Alexa, I'm taking a trip in a couple weeks. Do I need new luggage? Or do you have anything you recommend for me? Because they'll know everything you have. That's pretty cool. Shortcomings, well, the shortcoming, and this is the dirty secret nobody wants to admit, especially not in the voice first community, is we are in what was predicted to happen, which is called the winter of voice. Naturally, when you have an extremely popular, fast adopted technology, the rates are through the roof the first couple of years. Adoption, you've got hockey stick. And then it's going to level off a little bit. And then somebody is hopefully going to come out with this, they call it the killer app of voice. Ugh, I know it's a buzzword, but when we come out with that, then people get really excited about it all over again. Right now, it's not being used to its full potential, but it will get there. It's just early. So I try to still stay as optimistic and motivated about it as I can. But I think if you just look at the rise of podcasting and the investment going on in that field alone, that's the writing on the wall for all things voice and for curated content that's bite-sized. The biggest thing about it that I think is beautiful and helpful to the world is that it gets us off of these 4-inch panes of glass that we are clawing at. We are so hunched over, sedentary, stuck in this unnatural, addictive dopamine cycle of these apps that have been engineered to addict us. They're drugs. What are the two businesses that call the people that are the customers users? Drug dealers and social media apps.
So I know you used to do a podcast, or it just paused for now, and you've been doing flash briefings pretty aggressively. One, I'd love to know why you made that shift. And then really when looking at a difference, we'll talk a little bit about flash briefings. How often should somebody be doing a flash briefing, and why is there a difference doing it the way we do it with flash briefings versus podcasting?
Okay. A flash briefing, I would suggest doing it at least every weekday, maybe every day, but no less than every weekday. It's a short form audio content medium. There's no reason why you shouldn't have it out every day. People want to hear from you and have it as part of that feed. this is where a lot of audio is going to go. I love long form, I love interview, I love narrative, I love books from the library, but people's attention spans are so short and they want things in bite size. Like we talked about earlier, audiograms and clips get more engagement than sharing the full length to the whole 40-minute episode. So with a flash briefing, I would commit to doing it at least every weekday and also position it as a mini podcast. Flash briefing with a capital F and B is technically an Amazon product, although they've been, the phrase has existed before that. But I've started playing with the way that I position mine. I initially launched it as purely on Alexa. And I said, why don't I make this a podcast and increase my distribution? Just that's like 101. So yeah, was your question about the cadence or on the flash briefing?
Well, one, because I listened to one of your recent flash briefings and you said that's the question they should be asking. So I put that up on a tee knowing you would hit it out of the park, and you just did.
Oh,
so you did
that
perfectly
one.
well.
The question is, how should I sound and what should the content be and how fast should I speak?
Well, no, that was a separate question.
Oh, what?
But,
They're such a blur at this point.
No, that I listened to it. Like I said to quite a few of them yesterday. I just sort of put it on auto dial and let it just play out. But no, I thought the point you made about the speed, the cadence of how we talk was really smart. You don't hear nearly enough people talk about that. You don't have a lot of time for pauses and ums and ahs and flash briefings that you may be able to do with a podcast. So I thought that was great. But really, I think I was thinking also of the cadence of how often you post a flash briefing versus a podcast, because again, it is kind of the Wild West, and you can do whatever you want to do. It's just whether or not you're going to really drive engagement or see a return has a little more science to it than necessarily just an art.
Yeah, I mean, with any marketing content that you're putting out, even if it's a blog, if it's a YouTube channel,
exactly.
You have to have a cadence. And this is, I mean, you've probably noticed that I'm a little, I guess I wouldn't say I'm embarrassed, but I feel like I've had to justify why my podcast has, I wouldn't say it's pod faded, but I've stopped with my every week. I've stopped with my bi-weekly. I decided there were other things I was working on in my business that were more important, but it's like the cardinal rule is if you do want to be successful with these things and you're just getting started, you have to stick to the schedule you say you're going to, because that's like 101 for building trust. Say what you do what you say, etc.
So last question before we go towards the end close where we sort of get to know you better. If you ever had a daughter, now that you're in the voice marketing world, would you ever name her Alexa? Because wouldn't it just be cruel and unusual punishment for somebody that's in the business you're in?
It is punishment. And so it's interesting you ask this, Shark, because it was in 2019, there was at least a 35% drop off in babies named Alexa. And I think we will see the same thing happen to the name Karen.
Yeah, I don't think you have to worry about anybody naming their kid Google very often. I'm a little bit worried we're going to see a bunch of babies born in 2020 or 2021 named COVID, which is a little scary. But I don't think we'll have to worry about, hey Google won't refer to your child at any point. So, Emily, I ask this of everybody because you're talking to somebody that swims with sharks frequently. What is your favorite kind of shark and why? You're not too far from Galveston, and what, a 4-hour drive from Austin to the beach?
Yeah. So you're assuming that I know all the types of sharks.
I assume that most people know very little, but they generally have something that they love. Either it was a stuffed animal, somebody on Shark Tank, or some fish they saw when they were 12 at the beach.
Well, the first one that came to mind was a great white shark.
Okay, we'll go with that. It's the voice marketing shark. Anyway, Emily, it's a special time of the show. Are you ready for the 5 most interesting and important questions that you're going to be asked today?
I'm ready.
So this will help me get spotlighted on your next favorite podcast review show. Because, all right, number 1. I'm not talking about this from a business standpoint, but from a user standpoint. Alexa or Siri?
Alexa.
Yeah, I sort of knew you were going to say that, but
it's so easy.
All right, number 2.
Siri's the sleeping giant, though, of Apple. It's coming.
Number 2, it's because I'm thinking of Beetles, and I wasn't necessarily thinking of the Scarab, but Herbie the Love Bug, which is the 1969 classic that everybody's seen with Dean Jones, or Herbie Fully Loaded, which is the 2005 version with Lindsay Lohan.
I'll go with the classic.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bonus question. Do you know what number Herbie was?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Number 53? I
This
don't
is
know.
so far from Jung's thesis and scarab story. This is
Okay.
going off a cliff, but it was number 53 if you're playing at home. All right, number
Wait, did
4
I get it right?
is 53.
I guessed that absolutely out
Yeah,
of my weird
it's in
unconscious
your
brain that I must
subconscious
have seen it.
somewhere.
Oh, wow. I had no idea.
No, you didn't see it. You heard it, and that's why you
I
remember
heard
it.
it.
It's
That's
voice
crazy.
marketing.
I haven't even seen that movie.
Have you not? Oh, I thought maybe you had.
I've seen like a trailer. That's it.
Well,
Okay.
number 3, podcast episode or flash briefing?
Podcast episode.
Okay. Number 4. They're both in the order of beetles, and this is a little bit of a stretch. Ladybugs or fireflies?
Oh, fireflies.
Okay. You've had more beetle moments probably with fireflies as a kid. So number
Mm.
5, and the most important question that you're going to be asked today is biscuits or cornbread?
Cornbread.
Good. So you're in chili country. So, all right. So Emily, where can people find out more about you, hear your flash briefing or the podcast when it starts up, keep up with what you're doing in audio, obsession with Beatles and more?
Everything is at emilybinder.com. My consultancy is beetlemoment.com. The flash briefing is called Voice Marketing with Emily Binder. You can search for that or just go to emilybinder.com/briefing. Links to subscribe and listen anywhere you get your podcasts, links to leave a review, and past episodes are all there, emilybinder.com/briefing. The startup that I mentioned, which is the Alexa CMS, my other company is wealthvoice.ai. Wealth as in money, wealthvoice.ai. That's it.
Perfect. Emily, thank you so much for being with us today on A Shark's Perspective.
Thanks, Shark. It's been a blast.
So there was my conversation with Emily Binder, an entrepreneur, a speaker, a voice AI and emerging technology consultant, and she's the founder of both Beetle Moment Marketing and Wealth Voice. Let's take a look at 3 key takeaways from our conversation with her. First, so just about every time I've had the opportunity to hear Emily speak, she brings up a great point that we all should know, and it's how the Amazon Echo has become the hottest selling consumer technology device, the number 1 retailer in Amazon, the number 1 search engine in Google, and the number 1 producer of mobile phones in Apple. They've all helped rocket the adoption of this technology. The attention is headed towards voice, whether it's the use of smart speakers in the home or in the car. Simply speaking, people gravitate towards what is convenient, and well, voice is convenient. As she said, that's your keyboard pretty soon. But there's so many opportunities that can help really improve customer experience if we do this right. But complex queries are nowhere where they need to be. There are some legitimate privacy concerns, but like so much else, we've given those rights away for convenience, and that's another show for another time. Another is not siloing this off like we so often do with channels. I want to see audio leveraged in so many more ways and not to stagnate in regular use so that we don't only think of podcasts and Alexa and your refrigerator when referencing audio, but hey elevator, take me to the 7th floor because those buttons are dirty. I mean, that's a germaphobe's desired adoption of audio, just kidding. But whether it's through that or call intelligence platforms or flash briefings or sonic branding or any other form, think through how does audio improve the experience. Second, love this quote when she said the vast majority of businesses are not prepared for this, and it's the equivalent of somebody running a Google search and you're not present. You're not present on voice search. 30% of searches are done by voice screenless. That's a third. It's really important to optimize for that. Well said. You need to get there now if you aren't. I've spoken about this on many shows and in conference presentations. In the immortal words of Ricky Bobby, if you ain't first, you're last. And this is an area where you do not want to be second or last. Third, wouldn't necessarily agree with her on ads, but love her comments on producing content specifically thought of for audio that isn't just taking another form of content and putting an audio twist on it. She brought up the great example of the early days of how we took everything desktop and tried to make it look mobile. Think with audio content as to how do we produce audio that helps the customer experience. Got a question? Send me an email to kenneth@asharksperspective.com. Thank you again for the privilege of your time. And here's a question. What sound does a shark make? Well, if you're close enough to hear it, they might be chomping at the bit to tell you you need to join us on the next episode of A Shark's Perspective.